All right, let's see if I can get that together. What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to my channel, Alchemist. Justin here, and are you ready to set some intentions this week? Because we got some big ones coming up here. The biggest one, Saturn, moving into Aries. Everybody's been talking about it, but now we're about to get in it, and we're about to get a flavor of over these next few months of what that's going to feel like when Saturn really sets in there over the next couple of years. So we'll get into all that in a moment. Mercury's going to be entering home. So that's exciting at least. But we'll get into all that here in a moment. If you're new here, again, my name is Justin, and one of the things that I do on this channel is talk about the celestial news weekly, the chit-chat that goes on up in the sky, and I'm going to be covering the week of May 22nd through the 28th, 2025, and let's get into this thing. Because on a Jupiter day, the 22nd of May, at about 12:41 a.m., and that's going to be Pacific time, Venus is going to be forming a trine with Mars. And this is happening at 15 degrees and 59 minutes. Venus is in Aries and Mars is in Leo. Now, this is dope. You know, starting off this week with the trine, that's the most beneficial aspect. There's a lot of flow. You know, there's this ease, there's this movement with the trines, expansion that can happen with this energy here. And you're thinking about this between two planets that have a really nice relationship with one another. They're both part of the night sec, even though Mars is the lesser malefic, Venus is the lesser benefic. So there's a real sort of like, there's a harmonizing energy that's happening here, which, one, that's the aspect of Venus. Venus is about how we attract things, how we find harmony, concord, more so. Discord would be more Mars. But also how we create, how we express ourselves, how we appreciate beauty. You know, and Venus being in that relationship with Mars right now, that conversation where Mars is the energy, the drive, the passion, the desire. This can be a great time to think about the things that you want to incorporate in your life, the things that fuel you up, and really kind of getting those things going and sustaining that energy. Because when you think about the relationship between the fire signs here, Aries and Leo, one, the fire energy just in general is that sense of will, the thing that just like that creative passion, you know, that thing, that energy to be, you know, that's the fire energy. And when you think about Aries, they're the initiators of that, the cardinal fire sign, active, young in nature, ruled by Mars. So Venus is under the rulership of Mars. Even though she's in her detriment, it's where Venus is, I think, you know, when you think of Venus in Taurus, it's more of a receptive, growing sort of energy, whereas in Libra, its home sign opposite of Aries, Venus is more charismatic, the relationship builder. But in Aries, Venus is just about expressing oneself, about just the true will. And not really, I mean, it's building relationships, but maybe not the ones that you think. It's not going to resonate with everyone. And Venus is usually about wanting to please everyone. You know, wants everyone to be in this state of harmony and peace. But this could be where your style, your unique sense of self brings about your tribe. You know, that could be one way that this energy shows up for you. And think too, when you think about Leo being the fixed fire sign, where Aries is the initiator, Leo is ruled by the sun, which is in a harmonious aspect with the sun being in Gemini right now. There's this opportunity, this flow, this idea there. So this could be where whatever you want to start up, whatever you're attracting, Mars can help you hold that, because Leo with that fixed energy gives this transit like stamina. So maybe this could be, for example, if you're like an Aries rising, this Venus could be, you could be thinking about new ways that you want to express yourself. Maybe you want to change your appearance possibly, you know, that your fifth house is being lit up by Mars. So this could be where it's like, yeah, you want to show your unique style. Maybe you want to impress someone that you know, maybe you have a little crush on there. Maybe you just want to feel more attractive, you know, want to feel more, if you want to experience romance, you want to put yourself out on display there, you know, and show those like really kind of accentuate those sides of you there. So that would be just one thing. And I would look to see if you have any sort of like planets or points that are going to be activated in this chart, and you'll see if this transit is working more personally with you. This has actually happened in like about 7 minutes within my Venus is separated from my sun, and Mars is separating from Jupiter. And actually Venus too. So this is actually a pretty busy one for me. But yeah, you can, and that's my chart's been actually pretty lit up here as of late. So this, I would definitely look into that. See if there's some things that you can get flowing flowing here. And that leads us, I think, really nicely into the next transit here, which happens on a Venus day, the 23rd of May. And at about 9:56 a.m., Mercury is going to be forming a sextile with the North Node, and it'll be trining the South Node. Now, this is happening at 25 degrees and 1 minute. Mercury is in Taurus, the North Node is in Pisces, and the South Node is in Virgo. Now, when you think about Mercury, that's how we communicate, that's how we understand practical wisdom, application, things around us, reasoning, are some of the things that Mercury is in charge of. And so when you think about the nodes can be, how I like to think of the nodes is like the North Node is that wherever this house is for you, the North Node is looking for mastery over this house. So maybe a bit of a discomfort zone, kind of out of your element possibly here, where the South Node can be where you've been, what you're used to, a comfort zone, where you find wisdom, where it's like, okay, in order to navigate where I'm going forward, I have to know where I've been. And that's how I like to think of the relationship between the nodes here. But this could be with Mercury aspecting these planets or aspecting these points in a harmonious way. This could be where you're seeing where maybe, for example, you've been in some sort of like rut. Let's say this is happening in like the financial axis, so that Pisces North Node. This could be where you can think about how you've been spending your finances so far, and think about maybe some different traits that are, now I'm thinking like if you have a Leo rising, just because I have a Leo rising, for example. And this could be where you're thinking about like, okay, like I want to be more financially savvy, so I'm going to invest my time into do this and to do that. And then in doing that, you're creating some sort of like, you're creating stability for yourself. You're creating an inheritance, something that you can pass down to others, so that could be just one way that this Mercury is working. But just on a general scale, this could be, again, just an opportunity for you to recognize maybe where you've been in a rut, or maybe where you're feeling like you're wanting your life to go in a different direction. You're wanting to change this. You're feeling called to something else. And so this Mercury can help in Taurus, especially. Taurus helps ground Mercury, because Mercury is fast, but Mercury brings it to Taurus brings Mercury to the earth and brings it to just a natural flow. I think there's a real steadiness with Mercury and Taurus. And so this could give you that, like, okay, in order to get to this thing, I'm going to have to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to have to probably do this on a consistent basis. Think of Taurus like the farmer archetype. You just don't plant the seeds and then just walk away. You have to tend to it. You have to maybe move some things around there. You have to watch out for critters, coming to get it. It's work that comes into this, but it's work that it can be rewarding work, and one that you could find some joy in that as well, some ease, depending on how this is looking for you there. But let's get into the next transit, because this one's almost poetic. On a Saturn day, the 24th of May, Saturn is entering into Aries, and this is going to be happening at about 8:36 p.m. Now, one reason that this is kind of a big deal, just because Saturn's and I work with the classical planets, so the furthest I'll work up with is Saturn. And Saturn is in ancient astrology, it was the slowest moving planet. It spends about 2.5 years or so in a sign. But this is a trickier one for Saturn, because this is where Saturn experiences its fall. And when Saturn is when it's just a celestial body is in its fall, sometimes that's where it falls into, where its pitfalls can come through, where it can feel trapped in a cage, where when a planet is exalted, it's most celebrated. It's like you can think about, I've heard it referred to, and I really like this analogy, where it's like you could think of the planet that's on its throne, whereas in its fall, it's in a prison. Where it's not able to access all of its abilities like it could here. And what happens here, what's the different, and you can see why that Saturn and Aries energy don't quite mesh that well, or it can be a bit harder to work with. Because just keep in mind too, just because a celestial body is in its fall, that doesn't mean that it's useless. It just has to work a bit harder. And here, I think the key word for this is patience, because Aries is the initiator. They're Mars ruled. Nothing gets in the way of Mars, especially in Aries. Get out the way. Like, who's going to stop that? Who would want to get in the way of that? Saturn would. And Saturn's going to be coming just as heavy, if not heavier. And that's the thing where this could be, let's say if you have, let's say if you have Saturn in the, let's say in Aries in the second house, maybe this could be where, just to give you an example of what this could look like, this could be where, you're looking at your financial stuff and you can't, if you've been maybe a lot of impulse buying, for example, you can see that starting to really catch up on you, where the money's flowing out a little bit more than the money's coming in, and now you're having to be a bit more frugal. That could be one way that's coming up there. But in working with that, then you become more financially responsible, you become more savvy, you can make a little go a longer way. That could be something that this Saturn Aries could teach you. Maybe this is happening in your home space. Maybe there's something that you want to get fixed up, and maybe you have like some sort of like, maybe you want to expand on the household, but then you run into challenges where you have to, there's zoning things that come into play here, there's all this sort of red tape that comes through here, and you have to persevere, you have to do in this work. Maybe you decide to do some DIY, but it takes a little bit longer than you expected. Like, oh well, yeah, I'll just do the plumbing myself, and then we ended up, then there's water coming out of the electrical sockets, and that's dangerous. So this would be a time where patience is a big thing for whatever you want to start. That it's going to be something, especially wherever Saturn's going through. That's going to be, but it doesn't have to be all difficult, though. Like, for example, this could be a great time for fire placements. I have a lot of fire. Leo, Sagittarius, this is one where you could, let's say for Sag, let's say if you have a Sag rising, this is going through your fifth house, self-expression, creativity. How do you want to express yourself? What have you been doing with that? There may be, but this could be feeling like a bit of like maybe writer's block, because maybe the same thing that you've been doing, because there's still work there, obviously. If you got a lot of Sag, you can feel this movement like, okay, I want to do this thing, but I need to find a new sense of inspiration. I need to find who I really am. I need to get down to who my true will is. Or if you have a Leo rising, this is going through your ninth house. So this could be maybe you're wanting to change your beliefs. Maybe you're going through, I don't want to say spiritual crisis, but your spirituality maybe be challenged here, where your worldview is expanded. You need to look into a higher calling possibly here. There are new aspects of you that are coming into play. Maybe you want to move abroad, possibly. There's a lot of work with that, especially with where things are at right now. This could be where you need patience, but that work, Saturn in Aries, I think, where if you can sustain that will, remember what started that feeling in the first place. And I think that's why I like how we started off with Venus and Mars. Remember why you wanted to attract this thing, why you wanted to put your energy towards this thing, and any things that you want to start up over these next couple of years that you want to initiate. And if you keep at that, I find where Saturn isn't always the greatest in a fire sign, especially in Aries or in Leo, but it produces this strength that is unreal, and it's like, it tests your will, but that will is going to be, Saturn's going to make it more concrete down the line there, and it's going to improve your mettle in a sense, but again, it's going to challenge. And where if Aries pushes, Saturn's going to push back. So that's just something to be in mind of. There are rules in things to this journey here, but we get some wiggle room in this. So, but this would be one where I would definitely pay attention if you have any kind of cardinal placements. That's especially Cancer and Aries. You'll be feeling that quite a Libra, of course. You'll be having oppositions, but Cancer and Aries, or excuse me, Cancer and Capricorn, that'll be forming squares with your placements. Aries, that's conjunctions. So that's that's your if you have Aries placements, those placements are going to have to be infused with that Saturnian energy. And again, fire sign, Sag, Leo. That's hot. That's hot. That's movement. It's work, but I think it's work that if you can find a work that's fueling you, it's going to be brilliant. It'll be brilliant. Even air signs, I would say we're talking Gemini and Aquarius, opportunities that are open up. This ingress starting off is going to hit my moon placement, and where Saturn's retrograding, it'll hit my moon placement 3 times. And so I've been feeling this for like a minute, what's been going on and where I intend this energy to go towards. And again, I feel really excited about it, and that's a nice place to be with Saturn. And so I think that's an invitation to get yourself excited for the Saturn transit. And for the work that'll improve down the line. So just some things to think about there. Now let's get into the last couple transits here, because I think that's it for, and then it's quiet the rest of the week. Well, at least till, yeah, I'll have to look at that. But on Sunday, and see, this stuff is like back to back. It's really kind of hot this week. Now on the 25th of May, that's a Sunday, Mercury is going to enter into Gemini at about 6 o'clock p.m. And that's dope, because this is where Mercury finds itself at home in Gemini. And so this is nice, where now Mercury is free to really think and to really process what this Saturnian energy means. This is one where Gemini they're of course ruled by Mercury, and they're the mutable air sign, and they're active and yang in nature. And so we have a lot of active energy this week. And I think that there's something where it's like, this would be a great time to think about, with all this exciting new fresh opportunities that's coming in, because that's what essentially is happening when a planet ingresses into this two new signs. The energies lighten up. It's a changeover. It's just like, we've been in that Saturn Pisces for a long time. We've been just swimming, and now we're back to life again. We're starting something brand new here. And so this would be Gemini. I think is just a great time for thinking about ideas, writing down some things, thinking about what you want to do going forward. Where do you want your focus to be? How do you keep that energy? What are some topics? What are some resources that you can utilize to help you navigate this Saturn and Aries energy? Again, if this happened in a financial place, maybe you're looking for an advisor. If this is in a home space, maybe you're looking for someone who specializes in that. If this is in, let's say, a health space, this could be, looking for different gurus, or I don't want to say gurus, but looking for different experts in the field, looking for people who know their stuff, who can help you make this transit a lot easier for you. Because like I said, Gemini, and the nice thing about Gemini is that it can teach as quick as it learns. So this is not just stuff that you're learning for you. This will be things that you pass along to others, because they're going to be, it'll look different, of course, for everybody, but there are similarities that happen for all Gemini risings, Aries rising, Taurus rising, Pisces risings. Those themes, and it's just like, again, different points are accentuated, but this will be valuable for somebody else down the line too, because Gemini is about that communication. But I also think it is too, Gemini, I think, gets a lot talked about as far as like the sort of like communicating, but it is the listening aspect of that too, because in order to learn how to speak, you have to hear something first. And so I think that there's something even there where it's like paying attention to people who do know better. Not to say that the old ways are maxim, but I do think that where Saturn is about experience and wisdom, and Mercury is kind of and Gemini is even kind of a fresher, youthful kind of energy. But I would say just being open to listen to those who do have the experience, who can pass along their wisdom, who've gone through this type of energy before, and whatever that might look like for. It doesn't have to just be astrology. It could just be in whatever area. If you you're getting financial advice, be open to actually listen to what they have to say to this thing, as opposed to thinking like, oh, I don't have to do this. I can figure this thing out myself, and try to take like shortcuts, and then to be met with walls, just blockages. So that's just something to think about there, I think, with Mercury entering into Gemini. But then about 45 minutes later, at about 6:45, Mercury is going to form a sextile with Saturn, and that's happening at 0 degrees and 4 minutes and Mercury's in Gemini and Saturn and Aries, obviously. And so that sextile energy, again, is this, it's exciting energy. It can be where there could be doors opening up for you, opportunities, but you have to go grab those doors. This is an active sort of aspect that's happening here between two active signs, Aries and Gemini, both who I think have that sort of curious aspect in mind, where Aries is not, just going, and Gemini just like, ooh, let's see what that is, And I'm just talking on a base level here. But this could be where it's like, okay, I see the Saturn trends for what it could be. These are the themes that are highlighted for me. And this could just be getting just an idea like, okay, I need to focus on my finances. Okay, I need to focus on my relationships. Okay, I need to think about my future. Okay, or I need to think about how do I want people to recognize me in the world. Or maybe I'm thinking about like my communication style, or thinking about making more time for relatives, or whatever that might. Again, maybe we're looking into maybe some internal work. Maybe this is like some 12th house things that are happening. But again, whatever this looks like for you, I think that this is the time to see it as the opportunity that it really is presenting itself. And and again, even where there's flow, there's always work with Saturn. Saturn never stops working. But the brilliant thing about that is that Saturn never stops creating, because Saturn again gives things a foundation. It gives it form. It gives you purpose. And Saturn, I would say, arguably is probably the biggest cheerleader. Saturn wants to see this stuff manifest, but it's just like, okay, you say you want these things, you feel these things, you feel inspired by this. Well, this is the work. You want to become the next prima ballerina. You need to put in all your hours. There's a lot of work that goes with it. You want to be a doctor, you want to be in astrology, you want to be a taxi driver, you want to be whatever. There's always work that's going to be and things that are challenges are good that are going to come up. So are you ready for that? And so that's just something to think about there. The things that you initiate go. And that's one last thing I will say with that Saturn and Aries. It's almost like I think of that like kind of that Pussycat Doll song, that be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. You could find yourself saying you want this thing and then you get it, and then it's just like, oh, this is not what I thought I want, but what I thought it would be at all. So that would be something. Just be mindful again of how we're utilizing the energy. Manifestation is, and just like I think just the energies in general are just like things are just becoming more potent. I think we're getting into a different time here. Like it's like that's a separate video in itself of what that means. And so I think that this is a really great time to just like and again, you always have time with Saturn, but I wouldn't push it. I wouldn't push it with Saturn. So, and this would be especially too, again, if you have any sort of points, because Saturn will eventually retrograde here in about a month and a half, on the 13th of July. It'll go back to that, and it's going to go back into Pisces one more time. So if you have any points, especially around early degrees of Aries, late degrees of Pisces, if there's any aspects that's happening in there, I would look at those, because Saturn's going to be doing one final review of that before it enters into Aries, and then it's not looking back. So whatever seeds you sow in there, that's it going forward. And then it's not that you can't go back to those things, obviously, but sometimes it's easier to do it when the energy provides flow, as opposed to when you do it and there's more resistance to things. And you can just see that just in life. I don't think that's so hard to grasp, or to conceptualize. So interesting energies we're in. But I'm excited. I'm really excited for this. But yeah, I think that's all I got for you there. So, and if you want to, if you want to see where this is coming up for you, maybe you're feeling, because I think it's understandable too, because I've talked with some people about the Saturnian stuff, and I've tried to talk with them about it. That's like, listen, this isn't a time to be afraid of Saturn. There's, like, it's a time where it's just like, when you understand what Saturn's asking for, it's not that bad. It's really not. It's just work. It's literally just work. It's showing up and doing the thing day in and day out. And when you really just think about it practically, it may not. I was talking with someone. They have, like, for example, they have Gemini rising, and they were just like, I was just like, I would be thinking about your future, with everything that's been presented to you. Like, there's a lot of have you had a moment to think about this? And they're just like, I haven't. And I was just like, take this time. There's no time better than the present, to get ahead of this, because it's not too late. It's never too late to get to work on these things. So, and the sooner you get in the flow, the easier Saturn gets. I will say my Saturn, and just last little thoughts here, just kind of ease up Saturn. You know, Saturn's been working in my chart real heavily since it entered into Aquarius. I mean, it was opposition city in Aquarius. I had a lot of relationships. I had a lot of, not just like casual relationships end. I had a lot of significant relationships end, and but I've also had a lot of them start back up again. But it has been a very weird trade off, and then getting into eighth house themes, it was like, okay, like I'm really starting to get like, really starting to sink in, like, okay, this is what, like, if I do, these are the themes. I need to get ahead of this thing, and that thing. And I set up some stuff, and now I have a lot of stuff that is like, I can take that off my mind now. When I come back, and when Saturn comes back in 30 years, I'll have, things will be fantastic. That house theme will be in check there, because I learned a lot from that. And there's still some things, when Saturn backtracks, there's still some things. I'm pretty solid, but not quite perfect yet. And there's some things that I'm still dealing with. Saturn's going through some eighth house stuff, and it's fine. But Saturn's been doing some eighth house stuff, and that's been fascinating. Especially in the occult studies realm, that's been really fascinating. So, yeah, don't let Saturn scare you. Saturn is there to root you on there, and it'll get you ready for when Saturn moves into Taurus. So. And that's years down the line. So, and that's a nice thing too. Again, you have time. So think about it, but don't stress about it. But yeah, I think that's all I got for you there. So, and if you want to work with the lunar shenanigans, down in the description box there's a link from my other channel, The Chariot and Friends. I do videos every time the moon changes signs, and just talk about the lunar astrology, and do an I-Ching and a tarot reading as well. So there's that for you. But until next time, stay mindful out there. Keep raising that vibration through the roof. And I will catch you on the next one. Mercury Day.